Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 156th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with the amazing, illustrious co-host Scotty Yen. And today's topic is grace. Can you tell us why you picked that for today, Scotty, and what this means to you?
Well, I picked it because I celebrated a milestone over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And there were two topics that I was going to pick at my meeting because at my home group, we often ask one of the persons celebrating a birthday to pick a topic. Mm-hmm. I ended up picking gratitude, which is pretty much my go-to topic all the time anyway. Mm-hmm. I have a reputation in my area of always picking gratitude.
You got an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. Some people go. There was a stint in my recovery when I was 2 or 3 years clean, and I think I picked it as a topic at every meeting for like 6 months.
Yep.
People were getting pretty upset. But anyway, it kept me clean so they can.
Yeah.
I picked grace because I had been thinking about my grandmother, and she was a member of AA.
Okay.
And she had 27 years when she passed.
Yep.
Wonderful woman, and lived a very rich life in recovery. But something she used to say really struck out to me for whatever reason going into the weekend, and that's she never got what she deserved. And I thought, that doesn't make sense to me. Like you're a wonderful woman, you have a wonderful life, but she felt that the sins that she transgressed when she was in addiction and in recovery, that she was being rewarded beyond what was measured.
Oh, I thought you meant like the opposite way. Like she should have thought she was punished more versus given the gift she got.
Yeah. So
okay. Oh, yeah, that's a spin on it.
Yeah. So she thought her life was too good. And I think about that sometimes because I've done some stuff that I'm not proud of. But my higher power, when I reached out to come into recovery, my higher power was there. And my life is full of blessings today. So.
Yeah, wow, that's a really powerful story because I think anybody like myself, when you started telling it and when you first said she didn't get what she deserved, it was like her not having gratitude, like she wanted more, but really she felt like that takes me right back to my whole problem with the G word when I first came in, like the Catholic religion is lacquered with like there's hell, there's purgatory, there's original sin, like there's just a whole bunch of stuff where you don't just get off for nothing, I mean, and so, for me, I remember coming in and all of a sudden all this good stuff's happening, just, and I said, well, what do you mean I'm not getting punished for this? What do you mean I'm not, like there's a real letting go that has to happen to anybody. Like, I feel like your grandmother and me shared the same kind of concept of what God or, life should be like because of what we were taught in religion when we were younger, and so, I think that that's an amazing direction to be coming into today, and just because that grace can be surprising, you know.
Yes.
Um, you know, I'm going to just read this that I looked up here is grace is the unearned gift of a new way of life, a quiet power that restores us to wholeness when we cannot restore ourselves. It's not something we buy, barter, or prove ourselves worthy of. It is freely given, often through moments, people, and opportunities we never could have arranged on our own. The AA Big Book reminds us that we've been granted a daily reprieve from our illness, and that is reprieve is an act of grace, a daily miracle, not a personal achievement. In NA's Living Clean, grace is seen as the way we are given second chances, the right words at the right time, or the strength to do what we thought impossible. Grace is both the breath of life in our darkest hours and the light that gently shows us the way forward, even when we feel we don't deserve it. And so it's really funny that the very end of that ties right into your grandmother's feeling about it. And, I got to say that I'm surprised at the life that I'm leading, but I'm not sure. I feel like like I'm giving gratitude for it. I think I'm questioning it less than her. I'm surprised by it, but I'm maybe questioning it less, and maybe I could let go of that feeling of impending punishment a little easier, you know.
Yeah,
But boy, what a powerful way to start the episode. That's amazing, Scotty. Are you ready for a question?
I am.
Okay. Now close your eyes and picture yourself on a hill by a river. No, grace is receiving more than we've earned and better than we've planned. How has grace shown up in your life when you least expected it?
Well, so a few things come to mind. One is that fundamental. So in my story, I came into recovery as an atheist, and I prayed for God to reveal himself to me, and he did. And I think that was probably the first time I would say, because as I've worked the program, or the 12 steps over the last couple of years, and um having a higher power has become the linchpin of my life, where before prayer felt odd and awkward and didn't really know what I was doing.
Did it feel insincere?
Sometimes, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, though, because I think the two most important parts of a prayer are intent and um well, what's the other? Sincerity.
Yeah.
Sincerity. Intent, sincerity, and intent. Because I think for me, I don't always have the words to express to my higher power what it is I truly want or need, because sometimes I don't know that for myself. So it's a matter of like deferring to him. And I think that as long as I'm approaching it with that level of like really wanting what I'm going through to go through, I think that's the important part. Is like the
Hmm.
words are less important than what the heart is feeling at the time.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
The other time grace showed up in my life, I think, and uh, was with was with my wife Megan. In that I had been single for quite a significant amount of time before I met her, and for those of you who don't know, the online dating is the most bizarre circus that you can ever be a
I've
part of.
never done it, so I don't know. I've been
It's
with
not
my
it,
wife on 25 years next year, so I don't know.
yeah, it's a gong show anyway.
Yeah.
But I was fed up with trying to find somebody. I remember praying to God, just saying like, I'm done. I'm not looking anymore. I'm done. I'm just going to be single the rest of my life. I don't care. I accept it. That's my fate.
Hmm.
And then I think we started dating within a month after that.
Yeah, you were done.
Yeah. Well, I was done looking for people, but then she happened into my life, and there you go.
And that's it for that question?
Yeah.
Okay. So Grace is receiving more than we've earned and better than we've planned. How has Grace shown up in my life when I least expected it? You know, the last thing I ever expected was the power of surrender at the start of this program.
Mm,
Like, man, I'm telling you, Scotty, like, I don't know about anybody else, but all I know is for me, that reel of more was crippling. It was like it had gotten to such a neurotic repetition of action, that I was really, just trapped in that cycle, like, and the way that it would almost manifest the most was like how I would like almost chain smoke, when I was using, and it was just like I would want to smoke while I was smoking, you know, and that moment of surrender where that whole hamster wheel and more just went silent. Like I can't describe that as anything but miraculous and like, grace, like an act of grace to take that away and that fight not be mine anymore.
mhm.
And then also, I think of my first step five. Like that was my first guilt-free moment in 51 and a half years.
Mhm.
And that gone, like I was crying with tears of joy for 36 hours after that. And then, my second step five was with my second sponsor about 9 months into my recovery. And I come out from it, and it was a very powerful thing. I was with him for like 2.5, 3 hours, I'm not sure. And it all boiled down to acceptance. And it was the way that I had kind of come out of that pondering acceptance. And then I find out that my daughter has cancer. Like she calls me within 2 minutes of leaving his place. And like the fact that I was in that state of acceptance truly allowed me to be there for her in that moment,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and it gave me the grace she needed, you
Mhm.
know, and I'll be forever be grateful for that moment because like old me would have spiraled, would have made it about poor me, and it wasn't my freaking cancer. It wasn't anything like about me. It was about her needing to be loved and supported in whatever way that I could.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's just a few right there.
I,
I,
I, I
go ahead.
really like that because what good is a blessing if we can't carry it to other people? Right?
Exactly. Like it really
And timing.
the time, like it was just insane, man. And I couldn't have been at a more accepting point in a more clear-headed thing where I had just gone through this massive conversation with my sponsor, and we had really like I want to do a podcast with you and him one day. Like I
Yeah.
just did with one with him on Saturday, and whew, man, that guy dropped some bombs. Like, yeah, pretty amazing. Um, and just yeah, very very great. And shout out to John W. Love you, man. You ready for another question?
I am.
Okay. Grace is not the absence of consequences, but the presence of hope in spite of them. Can you recall a time when grace carried you through a difficult consequence?
Mm. I think well, I think of the times that I've been admitted to psychiatric units and
Hmm.
psychiatric hospitals and getting that kind of spin dry effect that some people talk about, where like, that was really my break from using
Hmm.
on a consistent basis. I can tell you from experience
Hmm.
that using drugs while you're on a psych ward is a very unpleasant experience.
I would imagine.
I can remember I remember walking down the hallway, the main hallway, coming in from outside. I just used with a friend. Uh I think the hospital here right there has a helipad. And I think we hid ourselves underneath the helipad so that we could use. Anyway, I'm coming in, walking down the hallway. The nurse's station is directly ahead. Like, so you have to walk there. I have to walk past the nurse's station before I get to my room.
Yeah.
I remember walking down the hallway and I just go, okay, Scott, act normal. And then it's like, what's normal? Like, what? And then the paranoia just, just attacks me
Yeah.
because using wasn't fun for me in those times. But no, but I mean, what I mean by that though is that I would often be in those units long enough to get a bit of a detox, readjust medication, that kind of stuff. And for whatever reason, I was able to stick it through there. And on my second last trip, which is thankfully a number of years ago, I remember just being willing to try. I was finally willing to try what the medical profession was actually suggesting that I do and not just use, right?
Hmm.
And I think I was afforded grace in that period where because I made the decision that I was going to do it their way, that's when a lot of shit started getting moving. And actually, part of it too was some step five work that I had done
Mm.
opened the door for me to get healing in other areas of my life that I never planned on getting healing on, basically. I know it's kind of vague. It's what you get.
I think though, to anybody who's done a step five, I mean, we don't need to know the details of something that was transformative at that point. Like
Sure, sure.
anybody who's done a down and dirty deep step four and an honest step five, man, I do not know a single person that didn't have some profound change inside them.
Definitely.
And for me, like I think it created a bunch of signposts.
Hmm.
Like even just the awareness that brings of what we need to surrender, what we're, like how we're acting and manipulating in certain relationships in order to cause our own pain. Like once we can see it as ourselves, I mean, the only thing we got hope of changing is our own actions.
Yeah. It starts with us.
Can I recall a time when grace carried me through a difficult consequence? You know, whoa. I mean, I've already mentioned three there, really. Like, I really did. That question kind of is a little bit similar to the last one, but, most recently, uh, I was experiencing a lot of cognitive dissonance, plateauing, not necessarily complacency, but not understanding where to go.
Hmm.
And so, in March, when I kind of just woke up to surrendering, like really started diving deep, that carried me through what I was experiencing as a kind of a rebound of anxiety in my life and things that were not good inside my brain. And and man, the grace of surrendering, of relearning how I want to pray, like what works for me, and then now entering into this two-way prayer, like it is just brought so much more peace to my life on a day to day to day basis. And like a shout out to surrendering and shout out to two-way prayer because both those things really are doing awesome in my existence right now.
I
Okay.
think just, you know, I found that when I'm unsure of where to go,
Yeah.
back to the basics, back to the beginning,
Yep.
and retrace your steps.
Yeah. No, and that's where like I hear a lot of people who are successful in their recovery that they do a set of steps every year.
Or
It,
everyone's, yeah.
and you know, like
Yeah.
I think I'm like great. I love doing them. You know, like I love it. Every time I read any of the literature, it's a different sentence I see on every page as the
Yep.
special sentence because I'm at a different point in my recovery, in my life, in my digestion, in my capabilities of even comprehending. You know,
Yep.
so um,
I agree. I think I'm on my sixth set, if I am honest,
yep.
and I'm doing them through a workbook that's not related to directly to NA or AA. It's a doctor that kind of created his own stuff,
hmm
but so the process is kind of magnified using
You
this
could
workbook.
say his book or name. I like.
It's
We're
called the
not.
Digital Path to the 12 Steps.
Yeah. Anybody out there wanting to follow in Scotty's footsteps? There, gentle path of the 12 steps.
It's not gentle.
No, no, you said that before. It's the kick in the balls to the 12 steps.
But no, but it's interesting because every time, like you said, for me, that was more profound, but there's always new things coming to the surface,
Oh,
always new
yeah.
things.
If you
And it's
remain
always good to
active,
get a
for sure.
different perspective. And because, they say it's like peeling an onion, right? But it's an onion without a center because
Yeah.
I'll never be, I'll be free when I'm dead, basically.
Yeah. You know, when you're free of defects and shortcomings, 15 seconds after you die.
Yeah.
That's what they
Easy.
say. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for another question?
Yeah. I was gonna
Grace,
send a quick text, I apologize.
okay. Grace turns our failures into lessons and our shame into compassion. How has grace helped you use your past to help others?
Sorry.
Okay,
You're
great.
gonna have to repeat.
Grace
I'm terrible at
turns
multitasking.
Grace turns our failures into lessons and our shame into compassion. How has grace helped you use your past to help others?
Um, I I'm a pretty laid back guy.
Yeah.
Um, I want to say with my sponsees, right? Because I've never fired a sponsee.
Yeah, you said that on the other episode.
I mean, they've dropped me, and I've dropped sponsors, but I feel like part of my journey, I've always been socially awkward or relatively socially awkward. And that really got amplified when I was using. So part of me knows kind of what it's like to be on the outside looking in. And when I see people at meetings who aren't as included as they could be, I usually make an effort to try to include them because I know what it's like to be on the outside looking in, and it's not cool.
hmm
Um, and also, my first sponsor extended me a lot of grace, and I don't. He was a mental health therapist, and I have schizophrenia, so he's able to help me in a lot of ways that your average addict probably wouldn't have, even if they'd experienced psychosis. But because I've experienced psychosis, and because I have that's part of my story. I'm very non-judgmental when it comes to people in recovery. and I'm very non-judgmental when it comes to my sponsees. Uh, like, I have a sponsee that's trans. I've had sponsees that were gay, and I have sponsees that have pretty troubled childhoods, you could say. And I feel like my job is just to be a safe space for them, right? So they can. Uh, this it's been a general. I'm just gonna go paint my recovery with a really broad brush right now. In that, I used to think that when I have more time than somebody else, I should be in a position where I can tell them how to run their recovery or how they
Ooh.
share at a meeting or how they present themselves, what they do, how they act. And I've realized that my job when I go to a meeting is to provide a safe space for people to recover. That's my job, and I take that seriously. But that's because I was given the room to recover as I needed to recover too, right? Because my walk through the steps wasn't your typical walk through the steps. So it's passing that part of it on, not the, oh, you shouldn't say a drug's name when you share or something like that. Or
Mm,
no, it's like, no, this is a safe place. So yeah.
I love that. Okay, grace turns our failures into lessons and our shame into compassion. How has grace helped me use my past to help others? You know, well, I mean, the very first thing that comes to my mind when I see that is sponsorship. You know, like the fact that our worst our worst tragedies become our biggest strength in our ability to have compassion, to have understanding, to have a shared experience with somebody who's suffering and somebody who's feeling stuck or trapped or like all the things you feel at the end of addiction. Like I don't know if I could ever trust a drug or addiction counselor who wasn't an addict at one point. Like
Yeah.
I just don't think like it's like going to a sleep specialist of a robot that never sleeps, and he's like, oh, I know exactly what that doesn't feel like. Like, like I remember there was a lady, one of the support staffs at the treatment center that I went to, and she wasn't, and I was like, oh, I'm like, how do you think that feels for the other people? You know? And she's like, well, I hope I've got compassion. And I was like, well, but so anyway, for me, that has helped me use my past to help others, and so what it's done is that grace of surrender, that grace of my sobriety, that grace of my journey all the way through these steps, building my faith and
Mhm.
my connection with the universe. That's helped me be able to first of all recognize like these gifts of the grace that have happened, but
Mhm.
also kind of to analyze and share my experience through them so that I can show people at least what worked for me and what didn't.
Yeah.
Like the beautiful thing about life is that we don't have to make all the mistakes to learn from mistakes that were made. If we
Mhm.
have an open mind and we really listen,
Yeah.
like there's just some things like, don't get shot with a spear gun. I don't need that to happen to me to be like, that is going to suck. you
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
and like certain things I see in people who are relapsing around me, and this is not a holier than thou thing. This is an observation thing. Like my brain looks at the world around me, assimilates information, and basically goes forward based on my analysis of that information. I step on the ground keeps becoming hard. I start assuming the ground isn't quicksand. you know
No.
but when I see people holding things like reservations, and consistently those reservations are what takes them out and gets them relapsing, I start to think relapses or reservations are dangerous.
Yeah.
Like that is that's information based on analysis, not expectations or catastrophizing when I see someone doing it.
Yeah.
I merely share, hey, that can be a dangerous place in your mind because you're still thinking that it's okay. Like you're not, your step one is in jeopardy right now.
Yeah.
And uh, and that's my past, and the grace of me not relapsing and saying, hey, I don't have any reservations and I'm staying straight. Maybe there's a relationship here,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
using that wisdom that comes from looking at that information, like knowledge becomes wisdom through that analysis and thought, you know?
Yeah. It's the difference between a wise man and a smart man.
Yeah, exactly. The wise man has looked at the information that the smart man has.
Well, the
And
smart man learns from his own mistakes, and the wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
ooh, yeah, look at that. That's Scotty dropping the mic, everybody. Okay. Okay, the more we recognize grace, the more it multiplies in our awareness.
Mhm.
How do you keep your eyes open for the moments of grace in daily life, Scotty N?
I think gratitude and humility.
Woo! Baby.
I think
Yeah. Expand how you use those to everybody else who's out here, who's like, what is gratitude? And could you tell me a little bit about your humility?
well, my humility starts with there is a God and I'm not it,
Boom.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That like I said this at my cake on Saturday. Like I have one day clean, and Narcotics Anonymous is celebrating 16 years.
Yes.
I am not
Mm-hmm.
um I'm part of a bigger machine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a cog in a wheel of a bigger machine.
Yeah.
What that does is it removes my need to act out and allows me to surrender. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And with gratitude, I've been talking to a good friend of mine. He gave me my medallion, but I've known him for quite some time, and he's really good at reframing things, right? And he often uses gratitude to reframe what the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
And I only really picked up on it a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
Once I saw him do it, I realized he does it all the time, and it's genius. Like we go to the same gym,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at the gym, and it was an unusually busy day. And my gym is nice, but it doesn't have the most equipment of a gym, so it can be frustrating if you have to like wait for a machine or wait for a bench to free up, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was complaining about it, and he goes, "Look at all these people trying to get healthy today. Isn't that a great thing?" I said, "Fuck you." But using gratitude to reframe things, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, bills suck to pay, but I'm able to pay my bills today. I'm able to be caught up, right?
Yeah.
There was a time when I would take, with the bills that were in my name, right? I would take all my housemates' money, and instead of paying the bill, I'd go get high.
Woo! Scotty was a jerk.
Why are they threatening to cut our phone off?
Wow.
Well, no. But that's the thing, right? Is now I get to pay my bills.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of, tradition seven in there where, you know, so
I love that.
I think that's how I would answer that question.
The more we recognize grace, the more it multiplies in our awareness. How do I keep my eyes open for moments of grace in daily life? Well, I 100% agree on, the gratitude is like, it's one of the things I start my day with. Really, it's a very fundamental part of my day. But, and one of the things that was a response for me in my two-way prayer was practice gratitude in more frequent intervals, like more throughout the
Ah,
day, because
yeah,
I can be like Buddha at 5:15 in the morning. And
yeah.
come 7:15, you say something to me and I'm gone. Like I'm like, whoa, what just happened to that wonderful state of peace and serenity?
And
And
consistency.
yeah, like it's not a list in the morning. It's a continual reframing, just like you said. The more I can consistently reframe it, the more consistently I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
And and so, like keeping my eyes open for those moments of grace, like gratitude literally is like trying to bird watch for those moments, and also, I like how you pulled humility into it, because really it is about, you know us seeing that our part in things is more valuable than us getting what we want,
Hmm.
you know and that in itself, like that act of humility, of that, keeping that in awareness, makes us realize that we get to pay those bills. We get to have a job today. I get to take my daughter there today, not I have to, you
Yeah.
know? And then
Privilege.
we really see, like, the day where you're like, man, I'm really not getting along with MJ, but it's just like, man, you still get to have a wife today. You
Yeah.
get to not be alone, you know, on whatever's going on with the conflict. It's probably a preference issue on your part. you know, like Michael Singer, he says it perfectly. It's like it's all a preference problem. Like
Yeah.
you have a preference that's not being satisfied, and the
Mhm.
more we can let go of our preferences, the greater chance we have for happiness.
Mhm.
And so
Expectations or premeditated resentments.
boom, biddy, boom, 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 doop, 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 doop. Yep, that's right. It is
Very
100%.
true.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah, I think so. So, Scotty, grace is the bridge between who we were and who we're becoming. How has grace helped you move from your old life to your current one?
I guess so. What the way I see that is through the 12 steps.
Hmm.
So I do a bit of legwork in doing the 12 steps, but I'm not the one who gives the end product of doing the steps. That's my higher power, right? So if you look at step 6 and 7, where we're talking about our character defects, I've shared this before, right? My character defects don't get removed because I don't like them.
Exactly.
They get removed with my higher power, and that's grace. Because by all, by all accounts, um, I don't deserve to live free of some of those things, with some of the vices, or some of the different things. Well, my higher power has blessed me and given me those rewards of being clean. So you drop a great.
Dropped a whole bunch. It's all right. I just got to set it aside for a second here before the dog goes crazy on it. There we go. Okay. That's so funny. Good thing there's another 999 pounds. Uh, Grace is the bridge between who we were and who we're becoming. How has grace helped me move from my old life to my current one? Well, I mean, that very grace of surrendering my addiction, like
Mhm.
nothing would have changed without that first step.
Yeah.
Like that was just the pivoting point
Hmm.
of me from my addictive path into my recovery path, and
Mhm.
without that being there every single day, like the addiction and the drugs are still sitting there. It's not
Yeah,
like my town has less of a drug problem just because I'm straight, you
yeah,
know, or the world. In fact, I mean, geez, it's like you just hearing about the ODs and stuff that are happening, like with some of the batches of things that are coming through, and man, like that grace is helping me every single day not
yeah,
to fall back and not to probably be dead, like who's kidding who? Like I don't feel that I don't feel that I was living. I was literally dying. I literally ended up in a hospital. And so, yeah, that grace has helped me just become an entirely new person. And it is through that relationship of, me doing my part and the universe, giving me the grace of going through in these
yeah,
freedoms. Like, they're almost like, what the Romans would build there, those victory archways that you see across Europe, right? It's like
yeah,
you almost go through one, and then there's a different level of freedom afterwards.
yeah,
Whether it's your step 5, 6, 7, or whether it's your amends, or whether it's just your daily inventory, chipping away at something that just keeps reappearing, or was like a deeper layer on that onion that you didn't see, you know
yeah,
it's like we could call it the black hole onion because it's just like it's just like, man, you could go right into that black hole forever, but
yeah,
also, like, it is an infinite thing. and
yeah,
and why is it an infinite thing? Because we never successfully kill our ego,
yeah.
you know
There's
like
always something to surrender.
Yeah, and like I've heard people as deep as, long and deep as you can get in the program, and they're just like, I'm freaking 75 and I still get angry, like, and that's just being part of human. But,
Yeah,
I think what happens though is we gain time between what happens and our reaction, and we don't necessarily have to like live such a deep shortcoming, even if something's irritating,
yeah,
because we have that grace.
yeah.
So grace works quietly, yet its effects can echo for a lifetime. What's a subtle gift of grace you only recognized in hindsight?
Um, hmm,
Because hindsight's 2020.
yeah. Uh, I think the relationship I was able to build with my dad before he passed, I, in the when I was in kind of the thick of it, so to speak, right? Where I was directly helping him. I didn't, I mean, I put some thoughts of different types in, but I was more predominantly concerned with the actual physical care I was giving him. And then um, I realized some of the deeper ramifications of our relationship and the roles we both played and some of the impacts that we've had on each other's life. And it left me feeling a deeper connection to my higher power than when I started it. But I didn't really realize how deep until, like a year after we had passed.
Yeah, like it's sometimes, the awareness is delayed because we sometimes can't see past our own pain or the immediate actions and interactions,
Yeah.
like what's a subtle gift of grace I only recognized in hindsight? And I'm going to say it, dying. Like if I didn't die that night, I wouldn't have had the turning point. Like it
Mm,
really, like it gave me the gift of desperation.
yeah.
Like I was desperate to not go back there. And man, I had every warning sign before then. I had every warning sign watching relationships starting to fail, like just countless times of being threatened that they're over, like health just diminishing, health, work going down, everything. And I wasn't course correcting,
Yeah.
like it took that thing. And at the time that I like, oh man, I'm so glad I died. That was not it. That was completely in hindsight that I saw
Rock
that.
bottom.
But but now I see it like as just one of the greatest gifts that I received because I am different because of that happening.
Yeah. I've heard actually Mike Tyson says this.
Hmm.
You know, rock bottom was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to him in his life.
Yeah.
He didn't feel like it at the time, but in
Well,
hindsight,
dude,
that event that allowed us to put the drugs down, even if just
mhm,
for a short while.
yeah.
Right?
I think um, it's necessary because it's just like we can numb across anything. We can numb across losing a relationship. We can numb across losing a job, like, but there, like, for me, honestly, I'll say it over and over again, man. It's like me being awake during that overdosing period was the greatest gift ever because I was not someone who just woke up in the hospital and was like, oh, okay, I'm all good. Like I went
Yeah.
through all the pain and the edge of dying and saw that and felt that. And I'm telling you, man, it's absolutely a gift. So grace is earned not through perfection, but received through surrender. How has letting go made more space for grace in your life? The old Gracie space.
Well, I think for me, that's ego deflation quite often. We're going back to humility and recognizing that, um, in the A literature talks about we don't have to be the best or the worst. We can be somewhere in between. So if I'm not engaging my ego, then I'm open to divine grace. But it's my ego that's going to get in my way.
Yeah, something happened in my video there. Okay. Whoa. Computer gone malfunctioning. Okay, so how has letting go made more space for grace in my life? Well, I mean, first of all, like we were talking about the gratitude and the humility, like it just makes it more visible in my life all the time. But, the more I surrender my will and become part of this universe instead of trying to control this universe, the more
Mm-hmm.
amazing
Mm-hmm.
things happen that I could never have conceived of beforehand. There's
Yeah.
so many times where I'm like, this isn't going my way. Like I could feel my defects and my anger, my fears rising. And then by 4 days later, it's a way better thing than I could ever have conceived it to have been.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's part of the beauty of letting go is like, we don't have to paint the whole picture. We think we can paint nice pictures, and then the universe paints really, really wicked pictures. you know,
Yeah.
and we're like, whoa, that one's way more 3D in that part than I thought.
I was talking about my psychiatrist with that the other day.
Yep.
Is he's from Egypt, and we were talking about the pyramids, and he's a proud Egyptian. He was a captain in the Egyptian army, and he's like, that's nothing, right? Because he had a photo of them up. I'm like, oh, yeah. And he's like, no, no, that's nothing. And then he has a photo of the Rocky Mountains up. He goes, that's something, right?
Yeah.
Like what I will never be able to produce anything near to what my higher power can produce.
Hmm.
Yet still he's blessed me with recovery. So that's grace.
Yeah, that is grace. I love that analogy between the pyramids and the Rockies. I guess, I mean, I was just at Helmkin Falls yesterday, which
Hmm.
is the fourth largest waterfall in Canada.
Okay.
It's outside of Clearwater. You got to look it up. The picture, I'll send you a picture actually. But man, I am telling you, Scotty, it is the most beautiful waterfalls I've ever been to. Like, it comes out and it's carved itself back into this bowl, volcanic bowl, where it's like almost like this heart shaped thing around it. And it spews out the water, and it's like a meditation in action. The water like expands and it expands as it goes out, so it keeps like billowing like a firework, larger and larger to the
Okay.
bottom. Man, I got goosebumps talking about it. Like, like
Okay.
that. I could never have been like, hey, why don't we just carve into a volcano and make a wicked
Yeah.
flow water flowing thing? Like, it was just so
Or,
impressive.
or how many times in our lives we have totally just went, oh yeah, cool, falling water. Let's go get high.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to 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 be present in the moment, to
Mhm.
actually really feel that power and that grace there. Okay, grace often arrives through the voices of hands of others. Who's been the messenger of grace in your recovery journey?
Oh, so many, so many. Uh, it reminds me of me. So I came to this realization earlier in my recovery, and I find it's very, very powerful. And that's that my recovery is based off of other people working their 12th step. If my stepdad never worked a 12th step with me, I would have never gotten into recovery in the first place, right? If my sponsors didn't continually work step 12 with me, I would be, I wouldn't have the program and I'd be dead.
It's the survival of this program and us.
Yeah. Um, two things that I'd like to point out. One is, in that guidebook that I'm working through, it says, if we don't allow people to help us, then how can God reach us?
Mm.
And that's so true, man. Like if if I can even mimic God working through me to help somebody else,
Mm.
then that would be a success. But the other one is so there's a he's quite a prolific rapper. He's he was considered one of the bigger underground rappers in the 2000s, and he still makes music, but he went through a psychotic break and he wrote a song about it. And in his song, he's thanking four people uh that basically saved his life in one way or another without them even really knowing it, right?
Yep.
And whenever I hear this song, I think about being in active psychosis and the people who are around me who would uh, keep me going. Right? And this, he's got some beautiful lines in his work, but the one that I think of is that sometimes when it's too painful for me to breathe, I have people there that will breathe for me. And that's how recovery works for me. Because there's been times when I couldn't do it on my own,
Mm.
right? If
Yep.
I'm left to my own devices, if I don't have my higher power, if I don't have a sponsor, if I don't have a good support network, all that stuff, without that, I don't make it.
Yep.
And it's not going to be pretty if I don't make it.
No. It will not. That's pretty much dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to die, like, so I imagine dying from a drug overdose to be probably one of the worst ways to go.
It sucked.
Right?
It sucked, dude. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, don't do it with anything that is, going to speed you up because you want to be asleep for it. You do not want to be awake, not getting air. I'm telling you right now, you want to feel thirst in this world, cut off your oxygen and keep your brain awake until it can't, you know,
Yeah.
but cut it off real slowly and you'll feel the
Yeah.
thirstiest for air you felt for anything in your life.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, who's been a messenger of grace in my recovery journey? Like, I just go like bang, I'm right at Options. The whole, like, shout out to Options Treatment Center, the entire staff there, the people who organized that program. They were messengers of grace when I was graceless, when I was willing and open minded but had nothing, not even hope for a bit, and they really helped me through that journey. And shout out to both my sponsors. All my recovery friends have been messengers of grace, man. You
Yeah.
included, Scotty. Like,
Mhm.
doing this podcast, it's like I feel like I get the gifts of grace almost every time going through it with somebody because, it's not like we're trying to manifest anything negative right here. We're actually just trying to talk about our experience with these really miraculous instances in our life and how to communicate that to others so that so that maybe people don't miss these miracles of grace, you
Yeah.
know like because sometimes just those little things, like waking up straight today, dude. Waking up straight today is
Yeah.
something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can just go right on to like, shit, I'm out of coffee. The day's ruined. I got to go to work. Like the day could just
Yeah.
roll off, missing the beauty of things, which is why for myself, like, man, I find it so important to run my program steadily and try to keep myself on that even keel, you know,
Yeah.
because if I just if I just do some simple things, I can feel good about the day, myself, and my connection to the universe. And if those three things happen, then I feel unstoppable for the day. Like, there's a real good chance I'm going to bed straight and probably, with some level of contentment about life for today.
Yeah.
That whole happy, joyous, and free, man, those kind of promises come true if we work and run our programs on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just look at you. You're like, the day I stopped thinking I was, gave up on getting a partner, and boom, MJ comes rolling into your life shortly after that. You know,
Yeah.
the day we stop thinking we're going to pick, the universe will pick someone for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
are you ready for another question?
I am good, sir.
Okay. Um, Grace doesn't erase the storm, but it steadies us through it. How has grace helped you endure times of uncertainty or pain?
One thing that Grace has helped me with is having faith that things will get better. And the reward of faith is more faith, right? So periods where I wanted to act out or um, take somebody down with me or sabotage some part of my life. I just had knowing that trusting the grace, I guess is what I should say. Learning to trust it,
Mm,
that it would still pull through for me one more time. Right.
nice. Okay, so how has grace helped me endure times of uncertainty or pain? You know, it literally, you know, saved my life. Literally saved my life, and then made peace and serenity become something that I now have experience with that I never had before. So, like when something comes up, I now have a pretty good sense of faith that I'm going to get through it. And
Mm.
that's come from the repeated times that grace has shown up where when I didn't, A, had no clue it was gonna, or B, didn't feel worthy, or C, just had no clue what it was, and now I feel like I have a relationship, where I I keep doing the next right thing, and you know, next right things are going to start happening to me too, you
Yeah,
know, and and that doesn't mean it's all good things, but it does mean that I get through all the shitty things,
yeah.
you know. Okay, grace frees us from exhausting pursuit of being enough. How has grace changed your relationship with self-worth?
Mm. If you want self-esteem, do esteemable things.
Yep.
So my self-worth, um, a lot of my self-worth came about when I stopped looking at myself as broken, and broken is not the right word. Less than, or in poor standing with the universe. Um, I think that service within the NA structure was really, really big for me for that, because uh, people could count on me, you know, like being a treasurer for a group, as someone, being the person that the group trusts with money or with the keys to the door to open the meeting. Or I was webmaster for a while, a lot of that helped develop my self-worth.
That's awesome. Well, and like, you were just talking earlier this episode about being the guy who would steal people's phone money.
Yeah,
Like, how different of a feeling is that? Like, don't
yeah,
trust me with a bill that you've paid. Like, to
yeah,
now, like the treasurer, that's a massive situation and a massive example of growth.
yeah,
Yeah, that's so. How has grace changed my relationship with self-worth? Well, I didn't really feel worth very much when I came into the program,
yeah, yeah.
and these gifts of recovery have really changed how I feel on a day-to-day basis, like how my
Inside.
yeah, like my level of peace and contentment with life is just at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And it's the culmination of all these acts of grace that have created that. Like I'm not taking credit for my surrender. I'm not
Mhm.
taking credit for my defects going now, Like I'm happily a part of this beautiful universe.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to switch us to lightning round. Are you ready for a few lightning questions?
I am, yes.
Okay, so we'll set 57 minutes on the timer. Keep your shares to 57 minutes or under. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Okay, grace humbles us by showing how much of our progress is a gift, not a conquest. How do you stay aware that your recovery is a gift rather than an achievement?
Oof, that's a good line. Our recovery is a gift, not an achievement.
Hmm.
I know that my default mode is the achievement mode, right?
Hmm.
But I think for me, it goes back to 6 and 7 again, where it's like yes, I do some running around, but the result of my running around isn't from me, it's from my higher power. Right?
Mm.
The removal of defects isn't from me, it's from my higher power. The willingness to try to connect with my higher power isn't, so that's kind of where I feel with that.
I love that. How do I stay aware that my recovery is a gift rather than an achievement? I'm going to say through my gratitudes in prayer and gratitudes, and also through my prayer, like an acknowledgement of it. And, you know, and through my process of two-way prayer, like I literally am asking for answers and receiving them. And, what I'm getting is results from listening to that and acting out on those responses.
Hmm.
So that kind of reinforces that it's under my higher power's direction that I get those results.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, grace is love in action with a power greater than ourselves. How do you experience grace as an expression of divine love?
Just being alive. Just like you said, like with gratitude and just, like we're living a high life in North America,
Mm,
and I guess I guess for me it's remembering that I'm not in psychosis. Remembering
mm,
like my life is beautiful today, and I'm grateful for that beauty, and
mm.
I recognize that I don't deserve it
Woo.
to end on the same note that we began with.
Yeah, I love that. How do I experience grace as an expression of divine love? Well, to end on that same note, I don't think that going to hell and original sin and all that is an expression of divine love. Like
Mhm.
and now every time I receive these graces, it shows that the universe has either forgiven me or has acceptance and love for me regardless of what I've done.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and that in itself, like, love is pure.
Yep.
Love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. And so to me, it is an absolute expression of love, and I'm very grateful to have it.
Yep.
Okie dokie, Scotty. Can we do a serenity prayer together and then the joke? Like,
Yeah,
call it
sure.
good? Okay. God,
God,
grant
grant
us
us
the
serenity
serenity to
to
accept
accept
the
the
things
things
we
we
cannot
cannot change,
change, the
the
courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
I should have asked if you were going to do the we version or the I version. Anyway, so for a joke. So I got this great book on addiction from the library. I was hooked after the first few lines.
Tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Love you, Scotty, and love you, everybody out there. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.